What if live events, concerts, festivals, and shows are already some of the most AI-driven businesses in the world? And most of us don't even realize it. This was actually one of the first conversations we recorded in the new year, even though it wasn't the first episode to be released. At XTraw AI, we follow a clear process and publishing schedule. And this episode found its place in that flow, but it's one I've been especially excited to share. I'll be honest as the host, going into this conversation, I didn't fully appreciate how much AI, data, and intelligence go into running live events today, or how advanced the business models behind them have become. This discussion genuinely shifted my perspective. Welcome to XTraw AI, the podcast where we extract real, practical conversations around applied AI. I'm your host, Raghu Banda, and today we're diving into how AI, fintech, and data analytics are transforming the live entertainment industry. Joining me is Ritesh Patel, CEO and co-founder of Ticket Ferry and founder of Locust Drum and Bass Festival. With more than 2 decades of hands-on experience producing festivals and managing live events, Ritesh brings a rare lens. He's lived the operational challenges firsthand and is now building an AI native platform to solve problems like fraud, ticket scalping, marketing inefficiency, and fan engagement at scale. In this episode, we go behind the scenes of live entertainment to explore how AI actually works in the real world. From real-time fraud prevention and pricing intelligence to data-driven marketing and audience insights. Let's get into it.
All right. Welcome back. Happy New Year to my audience and Happy New Year, Ritesh. I know this is the first recording that I'm doing in this 2026, and also we are getting into the season 17. So welcome on board, Ritesh. How was your holiday break?
Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Holiday break was, unlike most, extremely busy. It's one of the busiest times of year for us.
I can understand. I can definitely echo to that. So today, I have an interesting topic. I know when I came to know about your startup, Ticket Ferry, I know you guys are. I got really interested into what you guys are doing, and thought like, okay, maybe have a conversation with you so that our audience can also understand like where you are coming in from. So before getting into our conversation, Ritesh, I know you've. I want to start with some kind of a brief teaser questions kind of a thing. I think trying to understand your background, where you come from. I know you have spent quite a lot of amount of time, 20 plus years, producing festivals and working side by side with event organizers. And of course, eventually building an AI native platform like Ticket Ferry. So how did you end up getting here? I think broadly, if I put, how did you end up getting here? Something like a personal story or a backstory, if you could stitch it.
It's actually quite not funny. I think it's one of those ones where when you're doing a day job and then you have a passion, and then the passion you end up spending as much time doing your passion as you do the day job. And then one day things click and the overlap suddenly crystallizes in your head. That's kind of what happened. So I started coding at a really young age and building software products when I was 13. And my high school adopted some of the software that I wrote. And so and this was like 1993. So like as the internet was like really only just coming into like non-military use, and it was, we were moving from like BBSs to web. And I guess like I saw the internet develop over time and seeing like, consumer internet as well. So by the time I got to college, I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of boring because I've already been coding for years and years and years. And I've like all of these things they're trying to do, like formal, like, how do you code a linked tree and all these like, standard
Yeah.
computer science exercises were just really dull. And simultaneously, I kind of discovered the local music scene. And I had randomly been put in a house with like 35 guys in the middle of nowhere. And some of them had a really major passion for music. They had turntables, they had speakers, and we started throwing these really big events in the house, like
Hmm.
essentially college parties. And they got really famous, and we used to get like 300 or 400 people would come to each one. And I kind of got the taste of producing events through that, and asked my housemate, "Hey, should we go and approach a real nightclub and go and like see if they'll let us rent it for a night and like actually throw a real event?" And so we ended up convincing one of the top venues in the city to let us do something on a Saturday night as like two 19-year-old kids. And I phoned up a really big DJ booking agency and I was like, "Hey, I want to book your four biggest artists." And they were like, "Okay, you're crazy, but cool."
Okay.
And then so we produced this event and it was packed in the first 45 minutes. And being the nerd, still, I asked a guy I'd been talking to in a chat room who was
Hmm.
a sysadmin if he would let me use one of the boxes in his physical data center and install streaming software on it so I could actually send an audio stream from the event to his data center and then we could like promote it in chat rooms. And so like I literally had to put my PC in my car and take it to the venue and feed from the stage to 56 to a Sound Blaster card, connect a 56K modem, and send a 20 kilobit mono audio stream to the data to the server, and then live stream my show. So it was like a really random like, okay, let's combine the two things
Right.
again. And then over 10 years, I kind of did both. I did like tech jobs and still kept running events. And after about 400 or 500 events, you kind of realize that the industry is broken.
True.
And I was running businesses with my brother as well, and we were kind of like, what we should do is we should build a platform that is not ticketing. It should
Hmm.
be full stack. Its purpose should be to drive revenue,
Hmm.
and that's how Ticket Fairy was born. And so then, I guess like 14 years since we put the first MVP out, 10 years since we first got funded, but over the last decade, we've just spent a long time like really understanding the industry and the bottlenecks and building as much of the stack as we can to keep on driving revenue for the industry. So that's where we're at. That's how we got to this point.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's a very interesting story. I think I've interviewed different kinds of guests, but I think I like the way you have journeyed into getting to this stage. I think I have people coming from the music passion, people coming from different passions into the field of AI, but you started your journey as a coder at a very young age, and then you kind of got into this uh, kind of co-staying with other people who have this hobby for music, and then getting into the production value. I know before getting into the real conversation, I know AI is now kind of affecting all these industries in different ways, right? I think so. Here, you are operating at three different big buckets, I would say. I think at AI, the intersection of AI, the fintech, and also live events ecosystem.
Yeah.
So, what was the moment that you realized that AI isn't going to be optional anymore, but the industry needs it? I think what was that moment that you realized that you have to do something
Um,
about
2020. So
it?
before
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT came out,
Mm-hmm.
we were lucky enough to do Y Combinator when Sam Altman was running YC.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was one of the kind of one-on-ones I had before doing demo day. And this is in 2015. And the when the GPT API was first available, when it was in invitation only private mode, the Sam made a post on the YC internal forum and said if there's any YC companies that want early access to the OpenAI
Mm-hmm.
platform, let us know. And so I put up a LinkedIn post in 2020, having asked the model, like it set a persona of like, this person is an event promoter. They are trying to create a marketing plan. They're trying to generate revenue. What should that person do? And um, the post is literally the output of that prompt, and it was in 2020, and it talks about community building and harnessing XYZ in terms of driving revenue. And it was kind of like, well, even back then, like an LLM actually had quite a good insight into what it needed to be. Um, and then over the years, like as we've grown the business, we realized that we're very hands-on with how we support our clients because it's enterprise clients, right? So
Right.
everyone has an account manager. Their events are complex, their businesses are complex, and we realize that actually we're building hundreds, if not, yeah, hundreds of feature flags in the platform that are all based on like very specific requirements for each individual client. And then there's manual work that needs to get done. So like Palantir has forward deployed engineers. Like they're very like, that's the big thing at the moment is forward deployed engineers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we were doing that from the very beginning. Like I was sitting with clients, and I was the first forward deployed engineer in the company. You're sitting with clients, you're analyzing their businesses, you're pulling custom reports, you're doing all of that stuff. And then when I got too busy, we hired a dedicated engineer that would become my replacement, and we called that the client facing engineer role. And then
Mm-hmm.
we've evolved that team over time. But once you do that, you realize that like because account managers can only do certain things. Account managers can't
Right.
write code and they can't pull custom reports. So you need both. You need account managers and you need client-facing engineers. Once you've
Right.
got both of those, you start to build a list of like all the common things that get asked. And
Mm-hmm.
I have on our roadmap from like 3 or 4 years ago something called the conversational dashboard, which was basically like enterprise dashboard, but
Right.
only chat based. And only now in the last 6 months are there agentic frameworks that are capable of actually doing that.
Right.
And it's not just the models in terms of hallucination and how smart they are, but the agentic frameworks and tools and all this kind of stuff that you need now, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's been on our roadmap for 4 years, 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and the tech wasn't good enough. So I think we realized really early on, ahead of most companies, that this was going to be the way that the most industries needed to go, but particularly live events, because live events are very similar to tech startups. It's one
Mm-hmm.
or two founders. It's very small teams for the first few years, two, three, four, five people.
Mm-hmm.
It's very capital intensive. And so everyone's wearing every hat. And
Right.
so if we can provide best practices, expertise, productize best practices, provide agents to be, workforce essentially,
Mm-hmm.
the events and entertainment industry needs it more than any corporates that do. They need it just as much as startups do.
Right. Right. Beautiful. I like the aspects of some of these things that you have explained, and like how you arrived at this and how you realized much ahead of the game that of your that how AI is going to be native into this industry. I know you guys. I think Ticket Fairy positions itself as a AI native platform, right? Not just a ticketing tool.
Correct.
So what is so to go to the first principles, like what does AI native actually mean in the context or for an event producer? Could you
So
briefly provide some thoughts around that?
yeah, sure, sure. So and again, this is really all of this stuff that I'm going to mention now is just surfacing now in the last month,
Mm-hmm.
which is like since we started the company, we always wanted to be like this is the platform you use when you come into the office every day. Everyone in your team does. It's not a ticketing platform because it's also revenue and marketing. It's also CRM. It's also ops. It's also analytics. It's also data science. It's also marketing automation. Um, we think that the what the industry needs is not separate platforms, one for ticketing, a spreadsheet here, secondary resource somewhere else. From the very beginning, and this is why, like in the early days, we couldn't raise money because every VC was like, "You're trying to do too much."
Mm-hmm.
Only like recently, where like vertical SaaS has come into play, that people realize that that concept actually is what we were trying to do. Um, you kind of when you're building all of these things, and you become the full stack. Once you become the full stack, which is kind of what we've done on the enterprise software side before we added AI elements to this,
Mm-hmm.
you understand all the moving parts of the business. You understand what return on ad spend looks like. You understand the flow of people through the entrance of a festival. You understand where those bottlenecks are. You understand how their conversion rates are working. You know all of those moving parts, and you have the social graph of their attendees. There's all these different things that you have if you become the entire stack. So we got to that point relatively recently where we're the entire stack with traditional vertical SaaS and enterprise software. And then when you start adding agents to it, the first side of the agentic element of the platform is what I described before, which is like all of the best practices of running the business. But then there's all the manual grunt work that gets done by founders who don't have those resources and they don't have the teams. So then it's like, well, hang on, there's 1,000 different PDFs and contracts for this event. It's all manual. They're all from different companies, so the terminology is not the same either. So you can't just write a pattern matching algorithm that's not AI based, right? So you have like there's a massive opportunity in kind of almost like legal tech, but for the events industry, because you're looking at unstructured documents, you're looking at hundreds of email threads across thousands of emails, and all of the manual work that gets done, right? That all needs to be AI. That's the AI native side of what we think the events industry needs. And then relatively recently, one of the big buzzwords is context graphs. It's all over Twitter and X at the moment, which is basically software traditionally holds the end result of something, like a CRM. Did the sale go through or not?
Right.
But not the whys and all the decision making in the background and why a client churned or why a client chose to go with someone else, because it's all held in different places, right? And the big thing right now in terms of where AI startups, where AI companies should be, or where new AI companies should be invented, is context graphs. Every part of a business, how the business got to this point, how and why. And so that's actually something we've been working on for a long time, because you only get the hows and the whys if you're the full stack and you have those data points already.
Right. Got it. I think so. Yeah, I think I get where you're coming in from. I think this context based or the context graphs, I think this is where I think you kind of build the whole thing, and that is how the platform was built. There are some kind of invisible problems, right? I think because you're into this kind of a space where you're working with live events or music festivals, there are some kind of invisible problems you might have noticed. Like, which of these problems is most misunderstood by the outsiders, and maybe why has the traditional software failed to address them or failed to solve them, and how you guys are trying to take care of them, or how do you address them?
I always love this question, because the biggest misconception when it comes to live events is that they make money. And so, like, you could be in San Francisco and you could be at Outside Lands in Golden Gate Park, with 100,000 people. Maybe 10 years ago it was 10,000 people,
Right.
and you might have been a VC who goes to Outside Lands, sees 10,000 people, and thinks, "Wow, there's so many people here. They must have made so much money." When actually they needed 20,000 people or 30,000 people just to break even. And the level of risk and the level of capital that goes into this industry is so insane. And they don't have 10 years to build a startup, right? The event goes on sale. It's on sale for 6 months. They can sell no more tickets after 6 months. So they have a very limited time to generate their revenue. And if they didn't make enough of it in that 6 months, oh, too bad. Never mind. You can't make it now, right? And so any money you lost, you have to find external investment, and you have no assets. So you have no assets to like. Outside Lands doesn't own Golden Gate Park. It can't borrow against that. It just uses it for a weekend. So there's assets that you can't borrow against those assets. You only have a brand and IP. You have a vision. You have a community. And unlike tech startups, you don't have venture capital. VCs won't fund you.
Right.
And private equity won't fund you until you're doing tens or hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue. So where do you find that money from? Like, founders liquidate personal assets. They stitch together 50K checks from friends and family to make this work. And just imagine you lost money and you can't pay your headline acts. You actually get blacklisted by the agency that represents another 100 artists. So you have to find it from somewhere. And you have to literally pour money into a hole to give it to an agent because you were contracted so that you had to pay that much so that you can do it again the following year and take the risk again.
Right. Right.
And so it's the most broken industry until you get to a threshold where you're 5, 6, 10 years in and you're a household brand and you're Coachella and you can sell out,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it's not different to how a tech startup works in terms of timeline and journey.
Mhm.
And the issue in the industry is also it's not expertise based, right? Like if I'm a coder, I'm learning and I'm building software and I'm experimenting. But like these events companies, the people that work for them, they don't do degrees in running a festival.
True.
Like
True.
you're doing it, it's all trial and error. This worked, this didn't work. How do we solve it the next time? Like there's
Mhm.
little things like we built a function where I saw that there was a bottleneck on the gates of a festival that we were powering. And the bottleneck was that the staff who were scanning the tickets couldn't quickly work out which wristband someone was supposed to get because there were so many different ones based on
Mhm.
all the different tickets they had. And it was taking 2 minutes per person to get each person. There were 10,000 people.
Wow.
And the following year, we built something so that you could predefine each different ticket and the actual artwork of the wristband that was mapped to that, so that when they scanned that year, whatever the person had on their QR codes was a visual representation. It said, give the person the black wristband. Oh, they added camping. No, you give them a red wristband instead. Oh, they added VIP. Okay, now they need two wristbands. One's white, one's blue. That literally took 2 minutes down to 30 seconds, 75% reduction per person times 10,000 people.
Mhm.
That means they probably sold 10,000 more drinks by $15 each. They made another $150,000 in revenue by solving that one little bottleneck.
Right. Right. Beautiful. I think the way you have put it, I think I myself am still did not remove one of the wristband, one of the red color wristband. So now that you explained me the complete process, I think it's mind-boggling to know that there is so much that goes into this and how uh, AI can help and how you guys are like a company like Ticket Ferry, how you folks are coming in there to help. So you've explained like the event producers, they run on very razor thin margins and they have limited resources, and then some of the pain points you have explained, like how do we take them and how do you handle them. I know Ticket Ferry touches payments, you also touch data analytics, you touch marketing automation, the fan engagement, and even some kind of server architecture, right? What is so if I put it, I want to put this question in this way: for someone who is listening this, how would you explain the big picture mission of Ticket Ferry, and for whom are you building it? Like, because there are different kinds of players coming in here.
Yeah. So the misconception is usually people think we're trying to compete with Ticketmaster and Live Nation.
Right, right,
They're like,
right.
how will you compete with them? And actually, it's the complete opposite. So, you don't try and compete with them because what most people don't realize is that Ticketmaster, Live Nation are owned by the same company. They are the event organizer, they are the ticketing platform, but they also probably own the venue.
Okay.
And so they are fully verticalized. Everyone else is not fully verticalized.
Hmm.
So we position ourselves as the infrastructure for everyone else that's not Live Nation.
Okay.
And so we've recently announced a credit product similar to something like Toast Capital, but it's Ticket Ferry Capital, where that working capital that's needed to pay for artists and talent can now come from us as credit. And so, but if you're Live Nation, you have an internal Live Nation bank, and venues can borrow from the parent company. Independents don't have that.
Hmm.
So now, if you think about the Live Nation infrastructure of like verticalize everything, plus the internal bank, plus thousands or tens of thousands of employees, for us, we can come in as the best practices of a product that's built on the challenges that have been solved by hundreds or thousands of event producers. We productize everything.
Hmm.
One system that understands all the moving parts of the business, financing through our credit facility, and then agents that understand all the moving parts and grunt work of the event production. And usually it takes a year to plan a festival. and then saying, okay, well, you're only a two-person events company. These agents give you the ability to execute in the same way that a 20 or a 50-person team would at Live Nation.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how we're thinking about this, which is we become the infrastructure for everyone else that isn't Live Nation, from ops to data to marketing to all the software pieces to the context graph to the fintech side of things. It's a big vision. It's taken over 10 years to get it to this point, but that's what this industry needs, because this industry has probably every events company has 10 to 15 areas where there's margin that they're leaving on the table that they don't realize they either don't realize they're leaving on the table. Like, who would have thought visual wristband scanning would result in $150,000 in more in bar revenue, right? The client didn't know that.
True.
And so it's our job to unlock that extra margin for those events companies, because ultimately they're creators, right? The event is it's creative, it's a vision, it's a community, it's what it's not is the all the boring stuff like the stage production, like the building the stage or the toilets or manually passing thousands of documents. Like, that stuff sucks. And none of that is unique. So for us, it's like, well, if we can be the infrastructure that allows these like very bold and creative visionaries that are able to bring 10,000 people or 100,000 people into a space over a weekend, then we can be that infrastructure that allows them to execute and become profitable.
Beautiful. And then you can get them profitable as early and as easy as possible, because they're not working with a Ticketmaster or a Live Nation kind of a big firm.
Yeah,
but I think
and I genuinely think we can decrease the time it takes for one of these companies to get to profitability by years.
Beautiful. I would like to pivot my question. I would like to ask you, I know you have also co-founded junglist.com and Locust Festival. So you have this insider perspective from both sides, right? Whether it is a creator or a technologist. So how did that help you? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think that was really key in building our agentic stuff, because over the last few years, and my brother's my co-founder, we've produced 5 festivals that are multi-day destination events where not just the attendees fly in, but all the artists are flown in from all around the world. And the moving parts on that is thousands of hours of work. And so when we did the first one, everything that needed to be done was late because it was only me doing it.
Right. Okay.
And the agents were like, why hasn't this document been signed? Why hasn't this invoice been paid? I was like, man, I'm really busy. I have a tech startup, but also this stuff is like, it's time consuming. And it's not just you asking, there's like 10 other agents asking for the same thing. And so as we were doing this, it was like, hang on a second. There's hundreds of documents. They're all different formats. And you have to manually download them into Google Drive or Dropbox folders. And then each person in the team who's got a different role has to remember to go in and look at those documents in time and manually extract what their job needs out of into whatever document they have. It's so manual that it was like, this is the prime thing that needs to be agentic. So over the years, we've just like, that's how it's been. You learn, you solve your own problem, and then you sit with clients and you also learn from their problems.
Beautiful. So I think when you're wearing these multiple hats, I think you're working with your brother and then wearing these multiple hats and understanding these different things, I think you're able to get all these things into the ticket ferry and then into this infrastructure what you're building for these live events or for these festivals who are going to produce and who you can provide all those needed at a much faster and much easier pace. And this is where I think, like you mentioned, this is how you are also getting into the agentic stuff much faster, using the AI stuff much faster. I know, I think there is this one term, I think, like the marketing inefficiency is a multi-billion-dollar issue, right, in live entertainment. So now, what does Ticket Ferry does in making to help these festivals or events reduce the overall cost of acquisition or increase the conversations? I know you explained a bit about that, but overall, how do you make it much more easier when you are working with these for these live events, and how in reducing the costs or making them
So I
more
guess like
cost?
one way that would be a well, one of the biggest problems of event organizers is that even if their event is amazing, they
Mm-hmm.
need to get it in front of the right people at the right time before the event takes place for them to actually see it and buy a ticket.
Yeah, yeah.
If your event is amazing and no one knows about it, no one's coming. And so we've been building tools over since the very beginning to help drive that in terms of fan engagement and and fan gamification and incentives and rewards and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of what we're known for in the early days. But the by doing that, how we did it was that we launched the first ticketing platform in the world that allowed you to earn back your ticket money by driving sales once you'd actually bought your own ticket. So you could spend $100 on a concert, and then I could recommend it to you and five other people. And if I managed to get to like 10 sales, I would get my $100 back and I would go for free. And we
Mm-hmm.
basically gave the event organizers distribution beyond their own reach. And the really nice side effect of that, and we've done
Mm-hmm.
$300 million of ticket sales, more than $300 million of ticket sales through the platform with that model turned on. The really nice benefit is we've got a really detailed social graph of all the buyers and how they are linked with each other and who influenced whom and what the critical revenue parts were. We're like, this whole part of the tree would never have spent money if this thing hadn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's context graph as well, right? Which is really nice.
Right.
But it also allows us to um, create very, very targeted recommendations of like why someone should be interested in this event because of all of the different data points and the social graph. And as we start feeding that into RAG and graph databases, there's a really nice graph database that is like it's RAG and graph at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's RAG and vector at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Rephrase vector and graph. That's what I mean. Vector for RAG and graph database as well. That allows agents to go into a subsection of the data very quickly using the graph nodes, and then use RAG principles to pull out like event recommendations and who knows who and things like that. So we're working with a really great database that's a YC-backed company to implement that within the platform so that we can very accurately get the right events in front of the right people. And that's just like, it's just one example, but like there's a lot to be done on the AI side to help drive revenue. There are, I mean, obviously like agents and chatbots and things like that. That's kind of the obvious use case, but I'm sure there's going to be way more that comes along as we start rolling this stuff out.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think I love the way how you explained that, how you can you have get the right events in the right time, and then, because if there is not, if people do not know the right event happening, I think even though your event might be great, you might have great artists, you still can make money or you still can sell.
Yeah,
I think this
it's
is
the,
where,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
if a tree falls in a forest, and no one hears it, did it really
true,
fall, right?
true,
It's
true.
literally that.
Literally that, yes, yes. So I would like to, I know since you come from the technology background as well as the creativity background, so I would like to pivot a bit and get into this. So what kind of frameworks, models, or architectural choices you give that are taken for this ticket fairy so that a competitive advantage is given to ticket fairy when compared to the other players out there? And how do you measure the effectiveness? I know you will, there are a few models, few architectures that you use, or few frameworks that you use, which is giving you a fairer advantage. But how do you measure that effectiveness?
To be honest with you, right now, like the client-facing AI products probably won't roll out for another month.
Mm-hmm.
The internal AI stuff we built has become really effective for our own purposes. And so like we have built an internal content framework that uses multiple AI models to create really valuable content. And we've used it to rank for keywords, event production related keywords, first 3 to 5 results in Google. And that uses different models based on what's needed. So sometimes it's a deep research model. Sometimes it's well, say it's O3 deep research. Sometimes it's Gemini 3 Pro for then optimizing content. Sometimes it's Nano Banana for image generation. Sometimes it's Opus or Sonnet for something else. Even though in the early days, AI companies got a lot of black for being, rappers around OpenAI or Claude. These days, people realize that the foundation models are actually going to keep on out competing each other, right? So your actual advantage is A, your understanding of the business side of it, and B, the
Right.
data moat, right?
Right.
And that stuff is like where we can see already it's showing that us having that advantage is allowing us to build more accurately for the industry and get results much faster.
Mhm. Mhm. Beautiful. Beautiful. So, if you could take one example and explain to our audience, we don't need to go into the details of the name of the event or for the confidentiality purposes, or if it is a public event, you can share. If you can explain like how much time it took and how did you folks make it easier for them to take it live, or how or what is the kind of if you can explain the process involved there, how fast you were able to make them go live, uh, and help them in the
With any
process
given client,
with any given client.
it's anything from 10 minutes to a couple of months, depending on the complexity required. If there's custom build and functionality, we tend to do that as almost like a client who asks. The types of clients we work with are established event producers, right? They are
Mhm.
not beginners. So when they ask for a feature, we know that's kind of validated the market for whether we should build it, because
Right.
there's probably 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 other events companies that would want it. So we typically say yes, and then it goes into the roadmap. So recently we got asked for bulk corporate invoicing, where say an office manager wants to buy 100 tickets for their team,
Mhm.
and they don't want to buy them manually, and B, they don't want to give out the corporate card to the entire team. And that could be done with a manual invoice, but we built a bulk invoicing function that automatically triggers the pool of tickets that the office manager can then issue. Um, and it's a very hands-on approach, right?
Right. Right.
So the self-service side of the product, literally you can go in and you're live in 10 minutes.
Mhm.
Or you might say to an account manager, these are my requirements, and we spec it over an hour, and then by the end of the week, it's live with that right spec. But the idea here is that as we build more and more things and they become available in the UI, or we train an agent to ask the right questions, and
Right.
it then does the configuration for you, this is going to turn into, like, even the complex things are going to be done in minutes.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I get the way how you have made it, how you are making it much more easier to take these live events much more at a faster pace and then kind of showcase the real revenue and reduce the costs. So let's now get into the interesting question, or I term this as the extra AI question for the audience, the $1 million or the $1 billion question. I know you attract a lot of music pros, tech investors, startup founders, producers, and I believe even Web3 communities. So the question is like, what differentiates Ticket Fairy culturally and technologically from other? I know you've addressed in the context of Ticketmaster and other things, but what is that particular differentiation?
Between us and other event
Yeah,
technology
yeah,
startups,
yeah.
um, I think a lot of them come from either being tech people who decided they wanted to solve a problem,
Mm-hmm.
or events people who saw the problems and didn't necessarily have the right tech expertise to execute. We were really fortunate that we had both from the very beginning. And so when we've built the culture, a lot of the people that we hire come from having worked in events. Our salespeople all have worked in events.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just software B2B SaaS salespeople. They are people that have produced their own events or worked on the gates of a festival. Um, I think that like when you build with that culture, like that's really important because then your team has empathy for the clients. Your team understands what their problems might be. They don't hear terminology that they just nod politely and say, "Oh yeah, I understand that," when they actually don't understand that. And traditionally, the team spends time with each other outside of work as well, and that's been a really strong thing. Um, it's important to not just be this like cookie cutter tech company.
Right, right, right. I think this is where I think you have your differentiation factor where you come in, where you have a bit of both coming, not only from the event backing kind of a thing, but also you have the technology backing and then built it ground up, understanding how the events happen in real time, and then embedding the technology into that, and of course creating this infrastructure uh, for these kind of live events happening out there. Where do you see the? I know this is where do you see the market is going in the next 3 to 5 years? Or if you think 3 to 5 years too much, maybe in the next 1 to 3 years, with a lot of AI getting embedded into this kind of in your industry where you it's a mix of technology and also the creativity.
So I think that, and I was on a panel talking about AI and fintech and events
Mm-hmm.
and entertainment. The way that the overall world is going in terms of AI, it might get to a point where everyone's on universal basic income because their jobs have been taken by a robot or an AI agent, and the only thing they really have is either like they have two choices: plug into the matrix or go to a festival and touch real people. And that's probably where it's going to go. And
I think, but
so
that is a little far away, right? I think.
it's a little far away. It's a little far away. But I think that there's ideas of like, oh, should we have robot bartenders at festivals and should we have X, Y, Z and VR and whatever and live stream events? And it's kind of actually physical touch and being in a room or a field full of people is one of the last things we actually have left in terms of being human. And so it's not the right direction to add too much AI into the event attendee perspective.
Mm.
Maybe agents for customer service, maybe agents like we have an agent currently internally that it's a voice agent that any ticket buyer can call up and not just manage their orders, but ask any question about the event, any nuance, and it will answer in natural language, right? Like those things will make the industry much more efficient, and it will make ticket buyers and attendees way more happy.
Right,
But
right.
I think there's a line that shouldn't necessarily be crossed when it comes to like detracting from human experience and replacing it with AI.
True, true. Very well said. I think this is where I'm kind of sometimes like when you said about where in the far future, I think we don't know what's going to happen. But I think that human being is a social animal. I think we need that interaction, that live interaction. I think this is where I think that will keep people still sane, right? I think that's where those interactions still have to happen. Like you rightfully said, that AI can help all the other exterior activities that will get a person or an to the event faster. And this is where I think firms like Ticket Ferry can help in building this infrastructure or helping the events grow much more
I
faster.
would hope so
Yeah,
because it's a real
yeah,
shame
yeah.
at the moment what's happening in the events industry. A lot of festivals are failing because of lack of capital or late buying patterns and things like that. And for us to kind of come in with the infrastructure to help those events to actually grow rather than close down is really important.
Right, right. Well, it was amazing talking with you. Thanks for joining our podcast today and sharing your
Thank you so
wisdom. I
much.
think I myself learned a lot. What what would be the key takeaways that you would want to provide to event producers or investors or technologies? Because you have this, we talked about different backgrounds here. And how about the future of AI in this? I think you briefly touched based on that, but what is the advice that you would give?
I think the thing for event producers for me to say to event producers is it's really hard and it doesn't need to be as hard as it is. And let people help you. Let us help you. And from I guess even like investors and technologists, I think they underestimate the size of the events and live entertainment industry and market, and they underestimate the complexity and pain in the industry, and they think everything is easy, and it's not. It's actually harder than running a tech company.
Okay, beautiful. So if a particular listener would like to reach out or an event producer would like to reach out to you, what is the best way to come?
Instagram, LinkedIn. Tell me, ticketfree.com is the website, but Ritesh Patel or Jigar Patel, we're really easy to find on socials. And ticketfree.com if you just want to look at website and contact through there.
Sure. Beautiful. Amazing talking with you. And I've learned a lot. I think this is a very interesting field.
Thank you so much, Agu.
This has been one of those conversations that stays with you. Practical, grounded, and full of real-world insight into how AI is already reshaping live entertainment. A big thank you to Ritesh Patel for joining us and for sharing how an AI native mindset can fundamentally change the way live events are designed, marketed, and experienced from both the producers and the fans' point of view. To everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to XTraw AI. If this episode sparked new thinking for you, make sure to subscribe, share it with your network, and check out our upcoming conversations as we continue to explore how AI moves from experimentation to real impact across industries. Happy predicting the future with AI technologies. Until next time, keep extracting the raw AI conversations.